Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to
Good morning once again. The Denver National Western Stock Show, Open ABGA Show Class 1. I think a really nice percentage, though, to start off with. You study her at the ground, and she's really opened up, especially as she goes away from you. Big column of bone, stout in her skeleton, all those things that you kind of look for as those early indicators of mass and power. I think she certainly has that. One that's really up-fronted and really clean neck. I like her profile a lot. Congratulations on the single entry doe.
the winner of Class 101, Firefly Hill, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Next in is Class 102. While we have a minute, I would like to reintroduce Mr. Phil Myers of South Vienna, Ohio. He helped us yesterday and judge the showmanship, and he's back today to judge the Boer show. Phil is a graduate of Blackhawk East as well as Western Illinois University, where he competed on the livestock judging teams and received his degree in animal science. Phil has been judging Boer goats since 2005, including several IBGA and ABGA nationals. Phil now runs a herd of Boer and Boer Cross show goats with his wife, son, and twin daughters. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Mr. Phil Myers, our judge for the day. Thank you. John Deere is the official agricultural and turf equipment provider of the National Western Stock Show. Visit your local John Deere dealer for great deals now, and remember, nothing runs like a deer.
Another single entry percentage doe here, and much like the doe in our first class, one that at the ground is big-footed, stout in her bone work. I think opens up with plenty through her center cavity. If I'm going to be real critical of her, you can maybe fix her right in behind her shoulder, square her up from hock to ground ever so slightly, but one that I think travels well enough. She's certainly a deserving class winner. Congratulations to the young man.
Winner of Class 102, Cole Sprulock from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Next in, Class 3, Doe Kid, 6 to 9 months. Family, work, pets, land. Murdoch has you covered with jeans and boots, hardware and fencing, toys, tack, and so much more. Shop Murdoch's online or find your store at murdochs.com. Saunders Construction was locally founded in 1972 and is now one of the largest and most stable construction companies in Colorado. Saunders offers well-paid positions with opportunities for career growth. Visit us at www.saundersincorporated.com for information on career opportunities.
Go ahead and stop right there. You put yours on a profile facing that way. You pull up right in front of her. You right on up here. Really an interesting class as we get some size difference here, and a big amount of growth happens between 6 and 9 months of age, and so you just get some different frame sizes, and by this class you start to see some of that play out. I think there's some differences in build to go along with that frame size difference. I'm going to opt to use the combination doe that I think puts enough mass and power onto a relatively big frame. I think that's a doe that's still got some more gas left in her tank, and fundamentally I like her design better than the doe in second as we talk about top lines and fitting right in behind her shoulder a little bit better. I think she takes a better step out of her hind end as well. Young man's doe in second, I think, is the most impressive when you get your hands on her. That's the one that opens up the most out of the backside of her shoulder into her rack and loin. When you step back on a profile, though, she gets a little weak in behind her shoulder, a little high in her loin, and she's wanting to fight that chain and just not show off in terms of lines and balance, fight like our first place doe. I think that's close on top. And then the outlier, the one that doesn't fit, is the doe in third. That's one that's big in her kind, just a tremendously big outline kind of a female that's got the length and extension, but probably the narrowest gauge of the three out here, but one that I think probably has the most gas left in the tank. If you're looking for a big yearling doe for next year, she certainly would fit the bill. A lot of nice pieces and parts in all three of those does. Congratulations to the three exhibitors.
Results of class number 3. In first place, Josie Shipper, Epworth, Iowa. Second place went to K2 Ranch, Maxwell, Iowa. And third place, K2 Ranch, Maxwell, Iowa. Sullivan Supply is a family-owned and operated company founded in 1989. As the innovative leader in livestock show supplies, Sullivan Supply has kept the values of hard work, family ties, and quality products at its core. Sullivan Supply is proud to service the livestock industry and wishes all the exhibitors at the National Western the best of luck. Superior Farms is proud to help sponsor the National Western Stock Show. We invite you to see more about how we help family farms. See the video at superiorfarms.com. Weaver Livestock is committed to helping you be the very best you can be. Stop by their booth between the Junior Barn and Stadium Arena to check out their full line of show supplies backed by industry experts. Weaver is devoted to fueling your enthusiasm for showing livestock with innovative products at the National Western Stock Show.
Just an outstanding pair of does to lead off this class, and there's some differing advantages over one another. I'm going to use the doe that's a little bit more opened up through the base of her chest, and that allows her to be more powerful as we get right into her center rib and center skeleton. One that I think is just so opened up at the ground. Where would I get critical of her? Well, she kind of wants to throw that rear leg and loop it in order to meet her stride. I'd like to give her just a little bit more ease of movement off of the back end, but a doe that I think is so well balanced at the stand and so correct at the stand that I can give her just a little bit of a restriction to her hock in order to get her up here into the top spot. The young man's doe here in second, I think, is one that just eats the rest of the class in terms of bone and stoutness of skeleton. She's really true. Not only is she presented well in terms of getting that leg hair right, but she's big-footed, and you just see where she meets the surface. She's got so much power there. A doe that probably has a little bit of an extension advantage in terms of overall length of body. To me, she narrows up just a little bit through her chest in comparison to our class winner. That's not not to say that she's narrower chested, but she just doesn't have as much width and power as our class winner that comes in a more moderate package. I think that's a really good talking pair there at the top of that class. The paint doe that comes next, I think, is really good in just her fundamental design. I like her foot size. I think she's adequate in terms of bone work. She's not coarse and just too big a boned and losing track of how we ought to build females. I think that's one that's got the right amount. One that I think is really well balanced from the side. I think she takes a nice easy stride off of her back end. She doesn't offer the same kind of mass and power on the top side as our top two does, but that's one that if you just do single animal evaluation, there's a lot to like about her. I think she takes a better step than our doe coming here in fourth. Our doe here in four, I think the front 2/3 of her skeleton is really, really good. She's got tremendous shape and curvature to her center skeleton. She's opened up through her front end. Problem is you get around to the back side and she really wants to be going east and west with her toes when she's supposed to be going north and south with her body. If you can fix her hind leg, boy, she can move up in a hurry because there's a lot of good in that one. Our young lady's doe that comes next here, just want to balance her up a little bit differently, right in behind her shoulder, give her a little bit better look from the side, but again, one that I think is super stout in terms of her overall structure, has some mass and some skeleton to her. And then our pair of young men down there showing the doe, I think that's one that we just got to stouten her up quite a bit in her terms of her overall package. She's presented very well, but when you get your hands on her, she's probably the lightest dimension of the class. That's a good set of females there to close out our junior percentages. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Results of Class 104. In sixth place, Cole Sprulock, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Fifth place, Alexis Grundy, Westcliff, Colorado. Fourth place, Colton Schaefer, Adele, Iowa. Third place went to Ryan Throckmorton, LaSalle, Colorado. Second place, Ryan Throckmorton, LaSalle, Colorado. And the winner of Class 104, Pitlick Boer Goats, Jordan, Minnesota. In the ring is the champion drive of percentage does. Champion drive, percentage does in the ring at this time. The Colorado Farm Show is proud to support the National Western Stock Show, and they invite you to attend the 58th Colorado Farm Show taking place January 24th, 25th, and 26th at the Island Grove Regional Event Center in Greeley, Colorado. Farm Show brochures are available ringside or at the announcer stand. Complete details are also online at www.coloradofarmshow.com.
We bring out our class winners from this junior division, and I've already talked to each one of them extensively, so I'll just kind of hit some high points. I think that our two that come out of those first two classes are very much peas in a pod in terms of their build, especially through that front end, like their front end assembly, and assume that those kind will continue to grow out and make really big, well-grown out yearlings. In terms of maturity, there's not quite enough maturity in them to compete with a couple of does back here. They're just further along in terms of that growth curve and have had more time to pack more mass onto their frame. So I think it comes down to our class winners and second places out of those last two classes. And to me, there's one that's just so opened up at the ground and maintains that as you work your way up into her center skeleton and forerib, just overpowers everything else from a skeletal width standpoint. And I'm going to follow her with one that I think is really good in terms of mass and power and just a little bit more genuine shape. I'm going to go with our two out of this most recent class here. Congratulations.
Pitlick Boer Goats is your champion, and your reserve champion comes out of the same class. That's Ryan Throckmorton from LaSalle, Colorado. Centura Health is the proud presenting partner and official first aid provider of the National Western Stock Show. Centura's connected ecosystem of 20 hospitals serves communities across Colorado and western Kansas. Find one close to you at centura.org.
One that walks in, and as soon as she hits the ring, you just hope that everything's sound in terms of mouth and teats and pigment, and that what you put your hands on is really what you're seeing. And she holds up under all that inspection, and then you just breathe a sigh of relief, because that's one that, from a visual perspective, needs to win. She's the well-balanced, high-headed, extended fronted kind of a female that's still got a tremendous amount of shape and dimension down her top line. She's very genuine in what she is in terms of not just being full of hair and cover, and so that's the kind that you really like to see put together. The young lady's doe here in second, you just got in the wrong class, young lady, because that one is moderate frame, stout skeleton. I like her center body. She's got plenty of shape and dimension on top. She's just not quite as well balanced and maybe not quite as feminine necked as the class winner, but take nothing away from her. That's a doe that maybe you want to just jack her tail set up ever so slightly, but if she's just running around her pasture, you're real happy with a single animal eval on that one. And then a doe that just doesn't fit. She's different than the other two. She's more conventional in her center skeleton, just being softer and bigger ribbed in terms of spring. But when you get up into her upper skeleton, she's not quite as shapely in terms of having real meat animal shape down that top line as the top two in this class, but one that's certainly broody in her appearance and got plenty of mass and dimension to her. You just maybe like to shape her up a notch different. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Results of Class 105. In third place, K2 Ranch, Maxwell, Iowa. Second place went to Sophie Sturgis, Aztec, New Mexico. And first place, K2 Ranch, Maxwell, Iowa. Next in, Class 107. Upon completion of Class 107, we'll do the champion drive of yearling percentage does. If you're looking for that extra edge in the show ring, consider the Blue Ribbon 2 blocking blade from Andis, now available with ceramic edge cutting blade. Designed for competition, the Andis Blue Ribbon 2 blocking blade delivers a new level of performance with improved hair feed and clean show-stopping lines. Create your way with Andis.
A lot to like with this single entry yearling doe here, one that is a little bit further along in terms of maturity, and she just started to body down and be softer and broodier in her appearance. I think that works to her advantage just as a single animal eval. Maybe you want to fix her in her hock just a little bit, give her a notch more angle, but a really unique kind of a female here in terms of a yearling division. She's maybe built more like a senior doe, but just kind of further along in maturity, and I like that about her in this particular class. Congratulations to the young lady.
Winner of Class 107, Julie Carrero from Elko, Nevada. Next in will be the champion drive of the yearlings. Champion drive of the yearlings next in the ring.
Three really nice representations of the yearling percentage classes out here for this drive. I'm going to use the paint doe up here just for her unique combination of balance and power and style and all the things that I gushed about on her in class. I'm actually going to follow her up with a second place doe out of that class for her mass and power and stoutness of structure. Congratulations.
Champion yearling goes to K2 Ranch, reserve champion Julie Carrero. Now in the ring is Class 109 senior percentage does. Upon completion, we'll have the champion, and then after that, we'll do the grand drive. So we'll need champion reserve of each of the age divisions back in the ring for grand drive.
There's 3 does here in the senior division in this particular class and overall. So our class winner is going to be your senior division champion as well. I think one that puts so many good things into a sound functional package. She's big-footed, stout skeleton, stout skull, just a really good-looking older doe. One that maybe if you want to be super critical, you question how productive has she been. There's not as much udder development as you would like to see, but I'm not fighting that battle today. She got enough flesh under there. I'm going to call it good and roll on because that's the big-ribbed, good-looking doe from the side. She needs to win. Same can be said with this doe in second. There's a lot of length and extension in there. A doe that's a little bit lighter in her bone work compared to our class winner, but that's not to say that she's frail. She just had a little bit of a disadvantage in this class. That's one that I think is ultra level when you get from her hip back. Maybe you want to fix her right in behind her shoulder in order to even up the total top line, but a doe that I think is good in a lot of places, just maybe not quite as powerfully constructed as our class winner. And then our third place doe, one that just kind of gets overpowered in this particular division, one that I think is a little bit narrower gauge compared to our top 2 in this class, but when you get into her center body, you really like the spring and dimension that she has to that center skeleton. A more productive looking doe than probably the top 2, but a really good set of older females. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Results of Class 109. In third place, Garrett Rubin, Calhan, Colorado. Second place and reserve champion, Cole Sprulock from Colorado Springs, Colorado. And your first place and champion, Sammy Lorena, Lippin, Texas. Now we need the champion and reserve of each of the age divisions back in the ring for the Grand Drive. Grand Drive is next. We need to bring in, right now we need to bring in, thank you, need to bring the champion and reserves of each of the age divisions in back in the ring for the Grand Drive.
When I got here this morning, I asked some of the show staff if they had an approximate count on how many goats were going to be in the show, and I think they said 40, 45, 50, somewhere around there. And so that makes you just a little bit nervous. Are you going to find enough good ones that you're really happy with? And then those first 2 does out of the Junior Champion Drive came in, and I said, all right, that's enough to work with. If those are the 2 best does in the percentage show, I'm fine with that because those 2, I think, are really, really good. The paint doe that ends up the Junior Division champion, relative to her frame size, is as opened up and as powerful as anything out here. I think that's one that you just start at the ground in terms of structural width at both ends of her skeleton. She comes up into a big barrel. She goes away from you just a little bit funky on the back, too, if you want to get super, super critical, but one that I think just has so many really good pieces. Then we get into the yearling division, and that's the first doe that walks in the first class of the yearling division. I said, all right, we got another one that's a contender. That one is so unique in her build because you talk about making females of any species that are that elevated in their front end, that extended from their shoulder forward. They generally don't come with that much mass and power and shape from their shoulder back. It is hard to reconcile those things and put that big of a back end on that good and unique and angular of a front end. And so that's a real combination, though, that has some unique pieces you don't normally see in one package. And then we come into the senior division, and there's only one class of the seniors. All right, let's hope that we got one. And certainly we do. We had a couple of them come out of that senior division that I'm really happy with. This senior doe, I think, is really good in terms of her stoutness of structure without looking coarse and big jointed or anything like that. I think she's really good in her profile. She maybe not quite as shapely as our two younger does, but she's not supposed to be. She's a senior doe. She's supposed to have just a little softer look. She's supposed to body down and start to become more productive. And so I think you can make a case for any of those three and be real happy with it. Just depends on where you're going to put your priorities on a particular day. The one that suits me the most, I think, is a real unique combination female. And the other one, I think, is one that just embodies so much good in the Boer goat industry. I'm going to go out and shake the hand of your Grand and Reserve percentage doe exhibitors. Please put your hands together and congratulate all of our percentage showmen.
Champion comes out of the junior percentage does. That is Pitlick Boer goats. And reserve champion is out of your, that was a Yearling was the champion. Yearling is K2 Ranch. And your reserve champion is out of the seniors, and that's Sammy Lorena. Next in the ring is class 201, which we start into the full bloods. John Deere is the official agricultural and turf equipment provider of the National Western Stock Show. Visit your local John Deere dealer for great deals now, and remember, nothing runs like a Deere. At Murdoch's, save on the essentials you need like jeans, boots, hardware, pet supplies, fencing, and so much more. Shop Murdoch's online or find your store at murdochs.com. Saunders Construction was locally founded in 1972 and is now one of the largest and most stable construction companies in Colorado. Saunders offers well-paid positions with opportunities for career growth. Visit us at www.saundersincorporated.com for information on career opportunities.
Doe to start the class off with. Excels are contemporaries in terms of spread and dimension everywhere you look. And you can start in the top side at the upper portion of her skeleton, where she just opens up with so much more width and power out of the back side of her shoulder. She comes down with a more natural rib shape through her center skeleton and carries that all the way to the ground, where she just travels out on a wider step. The young man's Doe in second, I probably think excels her in terms of length of overall pattern. To me, she just gets to be a little bit flatter rib, flatter in her overall design. But I think if she continues to grow out and you put some more groceries into her, she can certainly start to pull apart and give you some width and power as she grows out into an older age and older class. The two does here that are just giving up too much age and maturity, I'm going to use the one that's a little bit stouter today. I like the young lady's Doe in terms of the stoutness of her features of her head, her stoutness of bone work. I think she's a little wider as you get your hands on them. I really like the femininity of the Doe here in 4. Just one that's a little bit narrower gauge and a little bit more immature at this stage, but a really good set to start off our full-blood show. Congratulations.
Results of Class 201, 4th place, Sheila Beasley, Conway Springs, Kansas. 3rd place, Sheila Beasley, Conway Springs, Kansas. 2nd place, Firefly Hill, Colorado Springs, Colorado. And 1st place, Austin Pagel, Hawkeye, Iowa. Next in is Class 202, Doe Kids 3 to 6 months. Sullivan Supply is a family-owned and operated company founded in 1989. As the innovative leader in livestock show supplies, Sullivan Supply has kept the values of hard work, family ties, and quality products at its core. Sullivan Supply is proud to service the livestock industry and wishes all the exhibitors at the National Western the best of luck. Superior Farms American Lamb is delicious and easy to cook. Visit superiorfarms.com for great recipes and ask for American lamb at your favorite restaurant.
I think there's some significant give and take at the top of this class between this top pair of does, and if you want to switch those, I wouldn't argue with you too long. To me, I'm going to use the sounder, more functional doe that I just think takes a little bit freer and easier step off of both ends of her skeleton to start with. One that I think is really good in terms of her stoutness of skull. When you just read some indicators that she's going to continue to get wider and more powerful as she goes. Now today, does she give up a little bit of mass and power, especially as you work around behind them? Absolutely. The powerhouse doe in this class, the roundness of muscle and shape and dimension, is standing in second. I think the paint hip doe certainly excels our class winner, especially as you get around here where I am now in terms of depth and curvature to the inner and outer portion of her leg. To me, the difference is she's just a little bit straighter off of both ends and maybe not as comfortable in her step. I just like to free her up in terms of her joints and give her a little bit more fluidity in comparison to our class winner. But as I said, that's a close pair, and if you want to change your priorities and flip those two, I'd be okay with it. The young lady's doe that comes here in third, take nothing away from her. That's a sound, functional one off of both ends of her skeleton. It's just getting overpowered by the two ahead of her today. She's a little bit lighter dimension female right now. I think if you take her home and continue to feed her out, that can change. But today she's just given up quite a bit in terms of rib shape and overall power. Congratulations to all three exhibitors.
Results of class 202. In third place, Sheila Beasley, Conway Springs, Kansas. Second place, Laken Walker, Salina, Kansas. Salina, Kansas. And first place in class 202, Sammy Lorena, Lippin, Texas. Next in is class 203. 203 is next in the ring. Weaver Livestock is committed to helping you be the very best you can be. Stop by their booth between the Junior Barn and Stadium Arena to check out their full line of show supplies backed by industry experts. Weaver is devoted to fueling your enthusiasm for showing livestock with innovative products at the National Western Stock Show. The Colorado Farm Show. The Colorado Farm Show is proud to support the National Western Stock Show, and they invite you to attend the 58th Colorado Farm Show taking place January 24th, 25th, and 26th at the Island Grove Regional Event Center in Greeley, Colorado. Colorado Farm Show brochures are available ringside or at the announcer stand. Complete details are also online at www.coloradofarmshow.com.
This is one of those classes as a judge where they don't ask you if you like the class, they just ask you to judge it. There's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make in order to build this class, and you got to kind of pick a spot and go. And if this black doe were a little bit better out of her hip and hind leg, she'd be easy to grab a hold of and say, yeah, I'm going to start with that one, and it's no contest. As she is, she's just a little bit more restricted out of that rear one-third than I would prefer. But if you can get past that, that's the big-ribbed, well-balanced doe in the front two-thirds of her skeleton that's really up-fronted. She's really opened up on the top top side of her skeleton in terms of meeting your hand with a ton of mass and spread and dimension, and so I'm going to go ahead and start with her. The sounder, more functional doe stands in second, and I hate to ever say that, but it's true because this doe gives up quite a bit in terms of overall power and spread to the black doe, but I do prefer the way that she travels off of both ends of her skeleton to our class winner. Just got to stouten her up in relation to that one that wins. The doe in third is one that's really good from a profile, and I expect that she's probably a little bit younger than these top two in here, just reading in terms of maturity. That's one that hasn't quite put on the mass and power onto that frame that her top two have, but the build is there, and you study her from a profile and the way that the pieces fit. I really like the way that she's built. I just don't want to stouten her up in relation to the top two of this class. Young man's paint doe here that ends up in four. I like the front two-thirds of her and the way that she's put together. I like to sound her up on the back end and just give her more security from hock to ground in order for her to travel with a little bit more authority off of the back end. Then we get into the three does that are a problem for me, because if you're a weather type person or you just want to make them real moderate and real stout, you can run these three together up higher in this class. The problem is, relative to those that place ahead of them, they're just totally different in terms of frame size, length of cannon, maturity, and where they're going to plateau on that growth curve. I opt to use the best balanced of those three in the top end of this trio, the one that I think is really well put together for what's there. I just like there to be more of her, give her more length and extension, and perhaps more length of cannon in order to project her out further in comparison to the top end of this class. The doe that follows her, I think, follows suit just in terms of build and maturity. Again, a really stout, big, opened up doe. Maybe need to stretch her out, get her up off the ground a little bit more. Young man's got the biggest top doe that comes in next, one that's really impressive when you get your hands on her. There's not enough of her. She's the shortest and most compact of anything out here. If we can just lengthen and stretch her, I think that you probably start to lose some of that width and power, and so she ends up down here just for frame size and length of cannon today. Then we round out the class with three does that I think are good in terms of their foot and leg structure. They're sound off of both ends. They're giving up quite a bit, both in terms of balance and overall mass and power, but I think they're good, sound, functional does that the exhibitors certainly need to be proud of. Congratulations to that class.
Results of Class 203. In 10th place, Scott Jones, Custer, South Dakota. 9th place, Scott Jones, Custer, South Dakota. 8th place, Scott Jones, Custer, South Dakota. 7th place, K2 Ranch, Maxwell, Iowa. 6th place went to Rebel Mountain Ranch, Penrose, Colorado. 5th to Rebel Mountain Ranch, Penrose, Colorado. 4th place went to Luke Walker, Salina, Kansas. 3rd place, Sammy Lorena, Lippin, Texas. 2nd was Sheila Beasley from Conway Springs, Kansas. And the winner of Class 203, Sophie Sturgis, Aztec, New Mexico. In the ring is Class 204. Upon completion of 204, we'll do the champion drive of the junior full-bloods. Centura Health is the proud presenting partner and official first aid provider of the National Western Stock Show. Centura's connected ecosystem of 20 hospitals serves communities across Colorado and western Kansas. Find one close to you at centura.org.
Here, as we start to wrap up this junior champion with one of our last classes in this division, I'm going to leave these two does just like they're standing. I'm going to use this doe here in first. I think there are some significant differences in advantage of one over the other, and you just got to kind of talk yourself into what direction you want to go and then describe them accurately, and we can all get along. The doe that I'm going to use, I think, just outpowers the doe in second as you get around behind them or at this kind of three-quarter view. This is the doe that's more shapely through the lower and outer portion of her leg and then back up through her twist. I think she just offers you more mass and dimension and true muscle shape as you work around behind them. Now, the doe in second certainly has the advantage from a profile standpoint, and I prefer her in the front one-third of her skeleton. I think that's a really well-built one that's really neat and angular about her shoulder. She comes with enough width at her chest. It's just as I start to work around behind them, she starts to play out from her hooks back and from her pins down. Just want to stouten her up for all the width and mass that she has in the front end of her skeleton. That's a really good pair of does that I think are just different than one another. The black doe that comes in next, I think, rivals our class winner in terms of rib shape, dimension down her top. That's a really square-built, square-made one. To me, she's maybe a little bit too square when we start to get her on the profile and talk about maybe wanting to stretch her out a little bit and give her a little bit more length of body for all the width that she has. One that I want to just make her a little bit more feminine up through that front end in comparison to the one that stands directly ahead of her, but I think that's a doe with a lot of really good pieces as well. The spot back doe is one that from a profile you really get to liken for her profile and the way that the pieces fit together. You get onto either end of her skeleton, and she's a little bit narrower gauge than those that stand ahead of her, a little bit flatter in her rib. Just want to stouten her up both in her upper skeleton and at the ground, and then I think that certainly you can couple that with a profile that would allow her to run higher in class. The young lady's doe that comes next, the front two-thirds of that doe I think is competitive with the top end of this class. It's on the back end that I get critical of her and just want to straighten her up from hock to ground, give her a little bit more soundness and functionality on the back too, and then we've got a lot of other pieces that we can work with. Same story on the doe that comes next here. I really like the hip structure in terms of her hip up high. It's when we start to get down lower into that rear leg that I get critical because she's got enough movement and hinge out of her hip. It's just when we see her go away from us, she gets a little wobbly on those hocks and those toes start to go east and west as she's going north and south. I think the front two-thirds of that doe is really powerful. Young man's doe that comes in next, one that's really good in terms of her handle, one that's really round and muscular. She doesn't balance up quite as well as the very, very top of this class. She's given up a little bit of size and length of pattern to a couple of others, but what's there is really good. You just like there to be more of it. The doe that comes next gets back to that pattern like our spot back doe that places up a little bit higher where you like her on the profile, but then when you set her in motion and you study her going away from you, doesn't have quite the natural width and dimension of some of those that place higher at the ground. The young lady's doe that comes next, I really like the build of that doe. I think that's one that if she's on the young age of this class, boy, she's got a bright future to her because that one is right in her build. And young lady, I hope that you will continue to feed that one out for future shows because if she hits the class break right, that's one that's got the build that she can run really high. There's just not enough of her. There's got to be more power and more mass to compete with the very top end of this class. Hopefully she ages better for a class at a different show, but I like the way that one's put together. Our bottom two does here, I just want to change them up in terms of balance. I think this doe's got a little bit more rib and power to her. Our doe that rounds out the class, I just want to drop her down in her flank and straighten her up on those hind legs, but the front two-thirds of that one I think is good. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Results of Class 204. In 10th place, Jennifer Wadester, Franktown, Colorado. In 9th place, Reagan Schrock, Salina, Kansas. 8th place, Jennifer Wadester, Franktown, Colorado. 7th place, K2 Ranch, Maxwell, Iowa. 6th, Austin Pagel, Hawkeye, Iowa. 5th place, Sammy Lorena, Lippen, Texas. 4th place, Josie Shipper, Epworth, Iowa. 3rd place, Rebel Mountain Ranch, Penrose, Colorado. 2nd went to Sammy Lorena, Lippen, Texas. And the winner of Class 204, Rebel Mountain Ranch, Penrose, Colorado. In the ring is the champion drive for the junior full-blood doe.
really competitive junior champion drive, and it's made more so by the fact that I don't think there was necessarily a heater in every class, one that just rose to the top easily and then got back out here and said, well, we'll see how she looks in division. I think there were some sacrifices that you have to make along the way in order to get to this point, and I'm okay with that. Not all classes are the same. You don't have the same type in every class, and so you got to kind of look at totals and pick the combination goats throughout. I think there's a couple of them out here that suit me rather well. Normally in a junior champion drive, the 0 to 3's got to be pretty outstanding to be in contention. This one is. This one's really outstanding. I think she's competitive for this drive. I think that's a doe that's really square made, really powerful. You come down here to this end, and that 9 to 12 doe is one that's really good in her rib shape, her balance, her design, her stoutness of structure. As I talked in that class just a second ago, the doe that's second to her is a little bit different in terms of her build. Really like her femininity, her upfrontedness, and the way that breastbone is tucked back into her. I think she's just got a really well-built front end. I think those are really the three in my mind that come to the top of this drive. To me, I'm going to use the goat that I think just exhibits the most mass and power in a sound, balanced package. That's going to be your 9 to 12 class winner as your junior champion. I'm going to come down here to the 0 to 3 for your reserve. Congratulations.
Your champion junior full-blood doe goes to Rebel Mountain Ranch, Penrose, Colorado, and reserve champion Austin Pagel, Hawkeye, Iowa. Next in the ring is Class 205, yearling does 12 to 16 months.
some really significant differences in hair and body condition in this class. The most genuine doe is this paint doe that the young lady brings out here, one that's a little slicker haired in terms of body hair. You get your hands on her, and she's totally genuine in what she is. She's lean, she's heavy muscled, she's well balanced from the side, and she takes the soundest, most fluid stride off of both ends of her skeleton. I think to me that's a relatively easy place to start. The young man's black paint doe here that comes in second is one that, from a visual perspective, you expect her to just blow away the doe in first in terms of spread and mass and dimension, yet you get your hands on her, and she's just a little bit disappointing in that regard. She doesn't follow through with all of that promise, and she just got a little bit more hair on her, as you discover when you put your hands on her. That's not to say that she doesn't have any spread or dimension. I think she's relatively shapely. There's just not quite as much width and power as you expect when you get your hands on her. The doe that comes in third, I think, is really good in terms of broodiness for this young yearling class. I think that's one that center skeleton-wise, you really like her depth of body, her softness of flank, and the way that she's put together in that center skeleton. When you watch her go away from you, she's a little bit narrower gauge compared to the top two in this class. You just want to widen her out at her base, and then I think she can run with those two. The red doe that comes next, much like our black paint that ends up in second in this class, that's one that from a visual perspective, you really like her, especially on the profile, yet you get in on her and she doesn't follow through with that. She's a little bit more disappointing when you get your hands on her, and then you watch her go away from you, and she's just going east and west when she's supposed to be going north and south. I want to make her more secure in that hock, but a really well-balanced, eye-appealing doe when she's at the stand. The spot neck doe that comes next, I think, gives you as much mass and power as you would want in a yearling doe. I really appreciate that about her. She doesn't balance up as well as the four ahead of her in this particular class. Just want to clean her up through her front end and make her a notch more feminine, but that's one that body-wise you really appreciate all the mass and dimension, especially from fore to rear rib there. The two paint does that round out this class, I think, are good in terms of their foot and leg structure. They travel sound, they're fluid in their movement. They're just getting outgunned in terms of overall mass and muscle dimension today, but a good set of females here in this yearling division. Congratulations to all these exhibitors.
Results of Class 205. In 7th place, Scott Jones, Custer, South Dakota. 6th place went to Sheila Beasley, Conway Springs, Kansas. 5th to Jamie Fugit, Beatrice, Nebraska. 4th place, Brianna Mulholland, Goodhue, Minnesota. 3rd place, Sammy Lorena, Lippin, Texas. 2nd place, Colton Schaefer, Adele, Iowa. And 1st place in Class 205, Lakin Walker, Salina, Kansas. Next in is Class 206. 206 next in the ring.
tremendous amount of good up here at the top end of this class. This top 4, 5, 6 gets pretty challenging. And if you want to rearrange them, depending well, that's fine with me because I think there's good in each and every one of them. And the doe down in fourth has some class advantages over everything else. It's just kind of where you line up totals and combinations. I'm going to go with the most fault-free doe out here. I think one that's big enough in her kind. And if she's big enough for you, then you look at how much spread she has at the ground, both coming and going away from you. She maintains the most natural base width. You get your hands on her. She really works a tremendous amount of spread to the top side of her skeleton. And you just step back off of her, and she's balanced really well. What's there fits together in terms of thirds. Her front, her middle, and her rear third all match up really well, and I think that's a really well-balanced doe that's got a lot of mass and power to her, and that's why I'm going to start with her. The doe in second, I think, is one that maybe gives you a little bit of an advantage in terms of foot size and overall bone work, but when I step back off of her, she's not quite as breedy about her head. She's not quite as good right in behind her shoulder as her class winner, but boy, you get past that, and that's a doe with a ton of product in her, one that's big-footed, stout-structured. You just want to change her in a place or two to compete with her class winner. But again, single animal eval, you just see her standing by herself. There's a lot to like about her. A doe that I have a problem with here in third, she first comes into the ring, and I think, well, that's a nice doe, but she doesn't balance up on the move. And then the young lady gets her set up, and I say, well, maybe she's just kind of being a knothead when she's on the chain, because when she gets her set up and stuck, I think she balances up pretty decent. She's got some structural width to her chest. You get your hands on her, and she's a big top, kind of round rib doe. To me, it's just when you set her in motion, she doesn't hold together in terms of her lines and balance as well as the top two in this class. Maybe she's just being ornery on the chain today, but I'd like to keep her just a little bit more collected on the move in order to compete with the top two. Young man's doe in fourth, as I alluded to, she's the balanced doe and the profile doe of the class. If you're just going to step back and judge them from a side view, she can win. The problem is you get to either end of her skeleton, and she's a little bit flatter ribbed. She's the narrow base doe of the top five, and I just need to widen her up and make her more powerful. But if you're just going to stand on the side and judge them, she can win all day long. The young lady's doe here in fifth, I think, is one that is really elevated in her framework. She's way up off the ground. She's tucked up in her chest floor, and I really like the front end of that doe. To me, she gets to be just a little bit shorter in terms of her overall length of pattern. I want to stretch her out. You get your hands on her, and she's the shorter hind saddle doe of that top end. You just want to lengthen her out everywhere, but what's there is put together very well. Young man's doe that comes next here, I think, is a powerhouse doe in the front two-thirds of her skeleton. If you could change her in her flank and her rear third, she can run with the best of them in this class, because that's a doe that from her flank forward is really well put together. She's big boned, she's stout skulled. The problem is she's tucked up in her flank, and that throws her off in terms of her lines and balance from a profile. If you can just drop her down at the rear flank there, I think that would balance her up quite a bit, and then she can run towards the top end of this class. The doe that comes next, I think, is really good in terms of her center skeleton and broodiness and rib. She's a little bit frailer structured kind of a doe compared to those ahead of her. Want to lengthen her out just in her hip a little bit, but I like the center third skeleton on that doe. The doe that comes next, ultra feminine up through her front end. Same thing at the ground, though. I need to give her a bigger foot and a stouter column of bone to run in this class. And then the young lady's doe that rounds out the class, just a little bit lighter dimension, kind of a female, one that I think from a profile standpoint gives you a really nice look through the front end of her body. You just want to stouten her up and give her more spread and dimension everywhere in order to compete in this particular drive. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Results of Class 206. In ninth place, Ashton Stevens, Calhan, Colorado. Eighth place went to Erica Ashby, Cedar Ridge, Colorado. Seventh to Erica Ashby, Cedar Ridge, Colorado. Sixth place, Austin Pagel, Hawkeye, Iowa. Fifth place, Brianna Mulholland, Goodhue, Minnesota. Fourth place, Colton Schaefer, Adele, Iowa. Third place went to Austin Pagel, Hawkeye, Iowa. Second place, Austin Pagel, Hawkeye, Iowa. And the winner was Sammy Lorena, Lippin, Texas. Next in the ring is Class 207. We'll do champion yearling right after that.
young man in the blue here has got a whale of a doe here. One that as she hits the ring and she's in motion, you just see so much lines and balance and collectedness in her. That's one that I think looks better on the move than she does at the stand, because when she stretches out, it gives her an opportunity to drop that flank and really look good on the move and well balanced. She's a high-headed, neat neck doe that's got plenty of muscle on top. I think that's just one of those unique combination does, and she needs to win. The bigger outline doe certainly is in second, and one that gives you a nice look in terms of a front end and the way that she's assembled through the front one-third of her body. From there back, though, she gets overpowered by a more moderately framed, heavy muscle doe, but that's a nice pair with some contrast to them. Congratulations. This is a really, really good yearling drive out here, and unfortunately, you only get to pick two of them. So there's going to be at least one doe that normally you would be happy to stand in a backdrop photo with that's going to get left standing. But I think there's just tremendous quality, especially in this first place line. You've got a paint doe up there that's really young and immature for this division, but she puts so much real muscle onto that frame. She's genuine in what she is. I commented in class, there's no fluff on her. There's not any excess condition. That's one that's just really genuine, and what you see is what you get, and that's a really upfronted doe with a lot of genuine muscle. I think she's tremendous. You've got the doe in the middle that maybe gives up a little bit in femininity to the does on either side of her, but boy, that's a powerhouse. You start at the ground where she's just really opened up through her chest floor. She comes back into a center skeleton with a ton of openness through her center body, and then a big backyard as you work around behind her. That's one that comes and goes with tremendous structural width as well. Is she the most feminine? No, but I think she makes up for it in a lot of stoutness. And then you've got the doe back here that comes out of that last class, and as I commented, she's one that looks even better on the move when she's able to stretch out and really stride. I think she goes with a really sound set of feet and legs off of both ends. She doesn't have to drop her pins in order to get up under her under herself and meet her stride. She's able to do that with a lot of flex and give to her hock. I really like that doe in terms of her overall combination of traits. That's why this oldest doe is going to be your division champion. Your doe out of the second class is going to be reserved. Congratulations. Want to go ahead and leave these two as they stand. The young man's traditional doe is going to be your class winner. One that I think just excels in terms of her front end assembly, her length and extension through the front 1/3 of her skeleton. And I prefer the set to her hock and hind leg over the doe in second. Where do you get real critical of her? Maybe just change her in her hip design, make her a little bit longer and leveler from her hooks back there. But I think a doe that certainly has enough other advantages that she needs to win. The red doe is one that you appreciate in her center body, and she probably, relative to her frame size, has more depth and curvature to her center skeleton. To me, she's a little bit irregular in the set to her hock, and maybe not quite as neat right in behind her shoulder, but I think there's a lot of good in the center 1/3 of her body. Congratulations to both those exhibitors.
Results of Class 208. In second place, Trevor Rubin from Calhan, Colorado. And in first place is Firefly Hill from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Next in is Class 209, age doe 36 months and over. And then we will do the champion senior and then the grand drive for the full-blood does. So champion reserves from each of the age divisions need to come back into the holding area for the grand drive.
Single entry here in our last class of the senior division, one that I think is really good in terms of her front third. That's a doe that's neat shouldered, neat necked, and really high headed, really elegant about that front end. One that comes back with plenty of length and levelness to balance up. Her underpinning matches her top line. I think that's just a really well built kind of a female that's held up really well for a senior. Congratulations.
Results of Class 209. Cole Sprulock, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Now the champion senior full-blood doe be addressed in the ring. First and second out of the two classes will come back in for champion.
I think kind of a no-brainer here for your senior champion. A doe here on the left that's just a little bit fuller, fresher, and more filled out today in terms of mass and power. The paint doe needs to be your senior champion. We'll come back up here to this traditional for reserve. Congratulations.
Results of senior full-bloods. Champion was Cole Sprulock, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Your reserve champion, Firefly Hill, Colorado Springs, Colorado. This is the grand drive for the full-blood does. Grand drive for the full-blood does, champion and reserve of each of the ages in the ring.
talked these all several times now, and so just hit the high points. The senior doe up here, I think, is one that's really good in terms of length of longevity and productivity, and one that has held together exceptionally well. The yearling does here that come out of that division, I think, are really, really good. A super competitive division, and one that I talked about that's your division champion. It's really unique in her build and her combination of traits. The reserve yearling was one that's really wide and powerful, gives up just a little bit of femininity to a couple when we get them out here in this level of competition, but one that's just so pulled apart and so powerful. And then you've got those two juniors up there, and as I talk to them in drive, they're ones that offer you length of body, footwork, bone structure, just really powerfully designed ones as well. And so once again, it comes down to some small differences. Everybody's got their personal preference. I'll go out and shake the hand of your Grand and Reserve overall full-blood does. Please put your hands together one more time and congratulate all of our full-blood exhibitors.
Grand champion full-blood doe goes to Austin Pagel out of the yearling class, and your reserve grand champion full-blood doe goes to Rebel Mountain Ranch out of the junior class. Again, 10-minute break before we start the bucks. Class 301 and 303 be right behind each other.
I'm going to start with the white-headed buck, or the buck that's got a little bit more white on his ear there, as one that's just a little bit fuller, fresher, more powerful in every aspect today. You get your hands on him, and he's really impressive coming out of the backside of his shoulder, squared up along his loin edge. Just a really good handling buck. And then the buck in second, I think, is one that's very similar in terms of structural design, just maybe not quite as filled out and as far along in terms of maturity today, but a nice pair to start off our buck show. Congratulations.
Results of Class 301: in first place, Erica Ashby, Cedar Ridge, Colorado, and in second place, Erica Ashby, Cedar Ridge, Colorado. Entering the ring is Class 302. Buck kids 3 to 6 months entering ring at this time. Class 302.
Young lady's buck that I'm going to start with is simply the most genuine in his build and his design. He's the truest at the ground in terms of structural width, and when you get your hands on him, he holds that up just in terms of real meat animal shape and turn along his loin edge. He's the stoutest, the most powerful. He's the widest coming and going. That one needs to win, and then you just add on to that the advantage that he has in balance. The young lady's buck in second is certainly the big-footed, soft-centered, soggy-built kind of buck that's already started to show some masculinity through his head. I want to change the way he's set out of his hip and just level him up there, make him balance up a little bit better from the side. And for all the bone and mass that he has at the ground, he just doesn't hold that up when you get into the top portion of his skeleton. You get your hands on him, and he's just a little bit flatter and plainer right now. One that I think as he continues to go along, that's going to be one of those big, soggy yearlings that you're really impressed with. Today, he's going to lose out just in terms of meat animal shape, but I think that's a nice pair. The buck that's really stretchy is here in third, and that's one that you like the front end of his skeleton. He's really elevated, and if you want to add some pretty to your herd, boy, that's the guy to do it. From his shoulder back, though, he's a little bit lighter dimension kind of a buck that's the narrowest at the ground, and you just want to widen him up and making him more powerful as he goes away from you. But there's certainly three different kinds of bucks there that have some advantages over one another. Congratulations to all three of those exhibitors.
Results of class number 302. In third place, Firefly Hill, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Second place went to Sammy Lorena, Lippin, Texas. And the winner of class 302, Lakin Walker, Salina, Kansas. Next in is class 303.
red buck here to start off with that I think you have to make a judgment call and say, is he big enough? And if he is, then he probably needs to win. That's one that comes in what I'll call a moderate frame package. And if you're big enough in that kind of a package, then you got to use his width, his mass, his power, his bone work, and also his balance from the side. I think he's a good bit leveler out of his hip and just a little bit freer and easier out of his hind leg than a couple of the other bucks towards the top end of this class. I think he's certainly wider chested buck and one that I think just really needs to get to the top in this particular drive. The buck that's got more grow to him and more masculinity about his head is this buck in second. And I think from his hooks forward, he can win. It's from his hooks back that I question if he has enough muscle to him relative to his frame size when you compare him to the red buck here. That's not to say that he's light muscled, but I think when you account for frame size differences, the buck in first is going to overpower him, especially through the inner portion of his leg and back up through his twist. That's an awfully good pair to start off with. A really unique kind of a dark red black buck here that comes here in 3, one that's elevated up off the ground. He's certainly the biggest in terms of his frame size of this top end, one that's really extended through that front end. The problem I have with him is when we get around to the backside, he's a little bit higher hawked, and he gets just a little bit insecure as you watch him go away from you. I don't think for all of his height and length and frame size, he has quite as much structural width as these top two, but one that certainly is going to make an awfully big yearling and would be fun to feed out and see how he continues to grow and if he can maintain that. The spotted buck that comes next, I think, is one that you certainly appreciate. His bone size, his stoutness of structure. He's not quite as well balanced as the very top end of this class, but one that I think has certainly enough muscle and power to him. Just want to balance him up a little bit differently. Young man's buck that comes in next, starting to get a little bit overpowered in terms of overall muscularity, width, and shape. One that's just a little bit squarer in his design than the buck that we rounded out with, and so I'm going to use his balance over the Cape buck here. The Cape buck gives you certainly a little bit more visual growth and overall outline. Just one that I want to stouten up and balance him up a notch differently, but a really good set of young bucks there. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Results of Class 303. In 6th place, Sheila Beasley, Conway Springs, Kansas. 5th place went to Luke Walker, Salina, Kansas. 4th place, Jamie Fugit, Beatrice, Nebraska. 3rd place, Rebel Mountain Ranch, Penrose, Colorado. 2nd went to Sammy Lorena, Lippen, Texas. And the winner of Class 303 was Pitlick Boer Goats, Jordan, Minnesota. Next in the ring is Class 304.
Really nice buck to start off with, one that doesn't disappoint you when you get your hands on him. He's really opened up through the backside of his shoulder all the way back along his loin edge and his hip and hind leg. One that's certainly masculine enough about his head and already starting to show some maturity and body down. Just a really nice buck to start off with. Young lady's buck that comes next, I think rivals our class winner from a profile standpoint. I think he's really well balanced in terms of his thirds. To me, he's not quite as dimensional when you get your hands on him. Take nothing away from him. He's another heavy muscled buck, just giving up a little bit to the buck in first. The young man's buck here in third is one that I really like his front end assembly. He's neat shouldered, he's angular and laid back, and that allows him to take a really good stride out of that front end. He's getting overpowered by the two bucks that we start off with here as we work around to the backside and study him from his pin bones down, but one that I think from a profile gives you a really nice look. Same can be said for the young man's lighter-headed buck there. That's a good profiling buck that just runs out of gas in terms of rib shape and real muscle. From a profile standpoint, he's one that you can really like. From a true dimension and skeletal width standpoint, I got to make him wider and more powerful. The darker-headed buck that comes next here, I think is really genuine in the step that he takes, and that's one of the things that I thought I was really impressed with. When I watch all the bucks go away, he actually maintains a fair amount of width at his hock and all the way to the ground. I like that about him. But when I step off of the side, he gets to be a little bit shallower in his flank, shallower in his overall rib, and just doesn't have the mass and power of some of those bucks ahead of him. Dapple buck has that extra rib and softness of skeleton at this stage of the game. He gets a little funky on those back two legs. I would like to square him up and make him quite a bit sounder on his back two. Then he could certainly move up. And the young lady's buck here, I think, has the soundness advantage. He's just getting overpowered at this stage of the game. A buck that needs some more groceries into him in order to be more competitive in this class. But structure-wise, I think is put together really well. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Results of class number 304. In 7th place, Fix It Farm, Elizabeth, Colorado. 6th, Larry Marr, Bennett, Colorado. 5th place, Erica Ashby, Cedar Ridge, Colorado. 4th place, Colton Schaefer, Adele, Iowa. 3rd went to Jennifer Wadester, Franktown, Colorado. 2nd, Sammy Lorena, Lippin, Texas. And 1st, Sammy Lorena, Lippin, Texas. Next in the ring is the champion junior full-blood buck drive. First and second out of class 302, 303, and 304.
fun junior buck show to work through. It comes down to a couple of them that I think are further along and more mature and just a little bit fuller and fresher today. Our young bucks up here, just not quite enough to them in order to be competitive. That's typical for a 0 to 3, 3 to 6, especially on the buck side. And so really the heat comes from our 6 to 9 and 9 to 12, and then the second place is out of those classes. To me, we've got a moderately framed, really wide, bold sprung kind of a red buck here that if he's big enough, you're going to certainly like him quite a bit. And then the traditional buck that comes out of 9 to 12, one that's really well balanced, really up fronted. Does he have quite enough behind as you work around behind him, and especially in the lower portion of his leg? That's the judgment call on him. I think there's some give and take between the two of them. I'm going to go with the totals goat today, and I'm going to use the red buck for your junior champion. I'm going to use the traditional for reserve. Congratulations.
Results of Class 304, or excuse me, Champion Drive. Results of Champion Drive. Your champion junior full-blood buck goes to Pitlick Boer Goats, and your reserve champion junior full-blood buck goes to Sammy Lorena. Next in, Class 305, Yearlings, 12 to 16 months.
lemon-headed buck to start off with. That's a show buck, and some people are going to be critical of him and say, well, he's not masculine enough. I think it'd change quite a bit if you'd have a beard on him. Just a buck that I think comes with a tremendous amount of flash and eye appeal and well-balanced, one that looks good both at the stand and on the move. He's round, he's powerful, and certainly one that I think just overpowers the class in terms of muscle, coupled with that advantage in balance. Maybe masculinity is a little bit lacking, but one that certainly has enough good that you've got to start there. The dapple buck that comes next, I don't know if we got maybe a little bit of a hoof trimming issue, but not feeling good on his front end, wants to be just a little over in his knee right now. When you get beyond that and just study body shape and dimension, he needs to end up in second with his shapeliness up high, his depth and curvature to his center skeleton. I think that's a logical buck to go in second. And then the other dapple buck that follows up here, I think one that's really masculine about his head and has an advantage there, but one that's just getting overpowered when you talk about body condition, muscle, and overall dimension. He's just a little bit lighter dimension today. Nice set of yearling bucks there. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Results of Class 305. In third place, Scott Jones, Custer, South Dakota. Second place went to Firefly Hill, Colorado Springs, Colorado. And the winner of Class 305, Colton Schaefer, Adel, Iowa. Next in is Class 306, then the selection of the champion yearling, and then the grand drive.
stud buck to start off the class with, and it just starts at his head. I'm guilty as anybody of not talking enough breed character, and so on this guy, I certainly want to mention how good a breed character is in terms of the shape of his head and the curvature and his horn set, and yet he's masculine and powerful, and his mouth is still on. That's kind of a difficult combination to get into as these bucks start to get older. Then you study him at the ground, foot size, bone work, width of skeleton. He's soft-centered, he's big muscled, and yet he's still well balanced from the side. I think he just puts an awful lot of good into one package. Young lady's buck that comes in second here, I think out-muscles the buck in third. That's one that I think gives you a little bit better balance in terms of fitting right into his top line and right in behind his shoulder a good bit better. And then the buck in third is one that you just want to stouten him up in terms of his overall muscularity to compete with these two. I think he's sound-footed. He travels well. He just needs some more groceries, some more power, some more width to compete with those, but a nice set of bucks there. Congratulations.
Results of Class 306. In third place, Scott Jones. Second place went to Ashton Stevens from Calhan, Colorado. And first place to Sammy Lorena from Lippin, Texas. Now our champion yearling is in the ring. The selection of champion yearling. First and seconds out of Class 305 and 306. Upon completion of this class, we will do the grand drive. We'll need champion and reserve, junior, competing against champion and reserve yearling for the grand champion full-blood buck.
This is one of those decisions that eventually just comes down to kind of preference and priorities because you've got two bucks over here in this first place line. They're just completely different from one another. Yes, they're both structurally correct. Yes, they both move free and easy. But then you just study body type and how they're put together. And they're so much different than one another. They're quite a bit different in how they're presented as well. We've got the lemon-headed buck up here that, as I commented in class, that guy's flashy. That's a showy buck that you're going to walk out into the ring and he's going to prance, and he's high-headed and long-necked and really elegant about that front end. But does that take away from his masculinity almost a little bit? Is he wide enough going away from you at the ground? But one that on profile, boy, he's just up-fronted. He's tucked into his chest floor, really well-balanced. And then you've got a buck that maybe is a little bit more traditional in his build in terms of how his rib and his body sets in between his legs. He's really wide. He's really opened up through his chest floor. He's massive and masculine about that skull and breed character. He comes back and he's just really level and well-balanced from his shoulder back. And he probably does have a shot more muscle as you work around behind him. I definitely think that he tracks out with more structural width as you watch him walk away. I think there's some contrast between the two. I think there's good in both of them. I'm going to use the older buck for your division champion. I'm going to use the younger buck for your reserve. Congratulations to both.
champion yearling full-blood buck goes to Sammy Lorena, and your reserve champion yearling full-blood buck goes to Colton Schaefer. Now the champion in reserve juniors and yearlings will come back in for the grand drive. While our judge takes one more time to evaluate the grand drive, I would like you to put your hands together and thank Phil Myers of South Vienna, Ohio, who's been our judge today, did the showmanship yesterday. You've done a great job. Thank you very much, Phil. Appreciate all your hard work.
It's been a tremendous amount of fun for me to come out here to the National Western and get the opportunity to judge. Hadn't been back out here since I was on a judging team several years ago, and so that's about a 15-year gap in there. But Denver's a special place to anybody in the livestock industry. Hopefully it's not another 15 before I come back out here with some goats or to judge again, because it's just a wonderful livestock show to be a part of. When we get out here in this Boer Goat show, tremendous quality all the way through, and so my compliments to the exhibitors, some of you near, some of you far, but I appreciate the time and effort that you took to get out here and put on such a quality show. My thanks also to the group of interns that I've gotten to meet and talk to, our ring announcer. You guys have put on a first-class show, and that makes my job easy when all I have to do is talk about goats, and so they ask you to put your hands together for me. I'm going to ask you to put your hands together and congratulate the show staff for putting on a world-class show. These goats out here, certainly I'm very happy, even though we've had some lighter numbers in the buck division. You've got a junior champion up here that I've talked balance and width and power all day long on. Every time that he comes in the ring, you just study him and the way that he's put together. I think he's really special. You've got a yearling buck, and for anybody that maybe has played around in the weather game and just bought a weather in the spring, showed him in the summer, those of you that do that probably don't appreciate how hard it is to raise especially bucks in the breeding side. These guys find a way to hurt themselves. They can start off looking great, and then they just crash for no reason. It is tremendously difficult to raise good older bucks, and so I think that yearling buck is probably underappreciated if you haven't been raising goats for a very long time. That guy's really well put together. He's well balanced as well. I think it comes down to some small differences and maybe just the mass and the power relative to frame size. I think both of them are awfully good. Your junior champion is going to be your grand overall. Your yearling is going to be reserved. Congratulations.
Your grand champion, full-blood buck, goes to Pitlick Boer Goats, and your reserve champion goes to Sammy Lorena. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our Boer Goat Show. The market show will start at 1 o'clock right here in this arena. 1 o'clock is the market goat show.